Welcome to the session. This is titled What's New in Advanced eDiscovery. I'm joined today by a couple of my colleagues on the team here. My name is Iram Arras, PM in the DNR solutions, and I'm joined by Nick Robinson, also a principal PM in the DNR solutions, and Jeffrey Wong, also a PM. Both of them handle different parts of the service, and they're all going to share some of the work they've been working on lately. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Just want to sort of start framing up the story with a couple of pieces, and then we'll jump into the good stuff in just a sec. So first, I want to talk a little bit about just the challenges that we're dealing with. And this is the challenges when I say we, it's both us, Microsoft, you folks, our customers. With pandemic and with quarantine, so many people are working from home, and that's posing several challenges. Challenges from how do you enable collaboration, and then when you enable collaboration, how do you track all of this content and manage all this content, secure all this content, and ultimately discover all this content. And so, one statistic that is kind of startling is, in a very short amount of time, we were basically required to come up with ways to be able to enable this working from home, and it's 300 million employees are working remotely. That's a staggering number, and especially given the pace, right? This wasn't, because of the pandemic, this wasn't something that you could take your time to do or plan over a long period of time. This is something that we had to react to very quickly, and so it does pose challenges trying to get folks collaborating, keeping productivity up, letting people sort of build and generate the content that they normally do. Only now we're left with trying to find how to discover all of this content while you're trying to enable the collaboration. Another challenge that I just kind of mentioned as well is the data that generates, right? So not only is it that many people working from home now and content getting distributed to different systems with these collaborative platforms, but also the sheer amount of data. And in eDiscovery, I think we've been talking about growing amounts of content for some time. Like, this is probably in most of the presentations that I've ever seen, but it's picking up pace, right? That's the interesting piece here, is that just in the last 3 years, generated more content than the 30 years before. That's amazing. That's a ton of content that needs to be managed on the proactive side, and then ultimately discovered as well. So now we've got folks working from home and sharing content and storing content in locations that typically weren't accustomed to, and then a high volume of data that's being generated by this action, by these collaborations. And then another challenge is the rules, right? The laws, the regulations. These are changing rapidly, and there's so many of them. 128 of 194 countries have established, some modern regulations. And this is like GDPR, for example, right? How do we adjust discovery to make sure that we abide by these regulations? Data sovereignty. So if you're a multinational customer and you've got locations all over the globe, how do you keep track of all of the different jurisdictions and the regulations that apply to you? These are the challenges that we hear top of mind from some of our customers. Is along with the other two that we just discussed, working from home, super challenging, large amounts of data, also super challenging, but also now, how am I supposed to treat this data? How am I supposed to discover this data, store this data, analyze this data? All of these are the challenges that our customers are talking to us daily. And so what we wanted to do is kind of share our point of view of how we might be able to help with some of these challenges. But just to kind of sum up, this is putting a ton of pressure on you folks and on us, quite frankly, right? Trying to solve all of these challenges on the fly while keeping the collaboration pace up, while keeping productivity up. This is becoming more and more difficult to do. And then deadlines, don't tend to change. We have to be able to turn these requests around very, very quickly with the challenges that we were just discussing, and budgets also, being restricted over the last few years. It's difficult. Like, it's a really big challenge. So the North Star, if you will, is you want to enable all this kind of collaboration. You want folks to be able to continue to work. You don't want to stymie their ability to generate new content, right? It's super important for them to do that, but it's increasingly difficult to manage. And then you want to keep track of all of the different regulations that are in play and changing, all within budget. And that's the tricky part, right? Is how do you land all of that within a fiscal year. And so our approach, when we try to solve and we help and engage with you folks to be able to solve some of these challenges, we take 3 principles in mind. These are the 3 principles that we usually apply to almost every project that we work here on the team. We want to be able to look through a lens of being able to reduce your risk, right? Doesn't help if we come up with a solution that exposes you more than you might already be. Also want to be able to reduce your cost, the bottom line. How can we solve some of these problems in a way that's going to actually improve your budget or your position? And then also want to make your team more efficient. If there are automations that we can take advantage of, if there are connections to systems that are within our network, within our tenancy, these are things that we can really sort of help you. And it'll also come up to cost reduction all up, right? But these 3 sort of guiding principles are applied to how we think about solving these challenges that we were describing just earlier. So you probably have heard us share this story, but it's super critical, right? The 3 principles, where they end up taking us is we like to share our story, even our internal legal story, in terms of when we collect content. One thing that we think is super important is to be able to go and find that content at its source, right? Different from maybe some of the tools out there where step 1 is to journal everything, just in case, right? Just in case there's litigation, just in case there's an investigation. We're basically making a copy of everything. Microsoft, our position is very different. It's when you search, when you do discovery, you're actually going straight to the source. There is not a copy. There is not a journal. We want you to go straight to the actual place where that content is stored. And there is a lot of efficiency there, right? There's a lot of cost savings there. There's a lot of risk reduction there. Also want to give you workflows. We want to empower you to be able to do work with that content, right? When the content is in source within the tenancy, we want you to be able to look at this content, understand this content, organize this content. And then ultimately, like the last bullet says, is cull this content, right? So many of our customers start the journey by saying step 1 is we take everything out of the mailbox, or everything out of a OneDrive site, or everything out of a SharePoint site, or a Teams site. And then once we extract all of the content out of it, then we'll process and analyze everything completely offline, and we'll review everything completely offline. And in the on-premise sort of model or framework, there are reasons why that was the preferred option, the preferred workflow. But in cloud, it makes more sense for us to try to do as much as that within the tenancy, right? Try to understand that data, make decisions about that data before we export. And just by doing that, right, you're able to reduce so much of the risk. There's less non-responsive, potentially sensitive data leaving the tenancy. It also reduces cost, right? If you imagine that maybe less than 10% of the content you're exporting is actually what's going to be responsive, that's 90% of the cost that's going out. That's potentially unnecessary if you're able to cull that before you export. So, with that, with those guiding principles and with the challenges that we just set up, the team is going to jump in here now, and they're going to show and they're going to walk through some of the work that we're doing to help you solve some of these challenges. And we're going to start with Nick Robinson, who owns the search and collection area, on some of the cool stuff that he's been working on. Hey, Nick, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Iram. Hey, everybody. Great to be here with you today. Really excited to kind of share some of the updates we have and have been working on. Got a few things that I want to talk through and show a little bit of a demo. And so I'll just go to the next slide first and kind of set some of the context on one of the big investment areas that we've been working on. And looks like you're still sharing, Iram. Do you mind just advancing before I switch to the demo? Excellent. Great. So if you're familiar with advanced eDiscovery and you've been working in the solution so far, you have a sense of kind of how the flow works from searching for your content, getting it into a review set once you've gotten your estimates and your preview taken care of. And one of the things that we've heard from customers is, hey, when I think about the eDiscovery workflow and the time to value, it's really about getting to the point where I'm looking at the relevant content, where I have the opportunity to review, touch, feel, start to put together that story of what happened when, who knew what when within the organization. And some of the feedback was, hey, it feels like it takes a long time to get to this review state where I'm actually starting to look at this content that's within my case. And so with this new release that we've been working on, it's starting to roll out currently, and so you may have it in your tenant. We're kind of going through the rollout process now, so it's not 100%, but it's on its way to 100%. What we did with this new release is kind of optimize the flow, so reduce the number of steps that you have to take to get to that review state where you're looking at relevant content. And we also wanted to really help this be kind of a really iteration-friendly approach, so that you start scoping that content at the point of collection. So rather than taking the approach of collecting the entire mailbox, collecting the entire OneDrive site, you're actually, targeting the information that you want to find, understanding about how much information is there. Is that the reasonable amount that you want, given your case, the size, the maturity of the case, or the early case assessment, and then kind of iterating on that so you can edit, copy, change, and get another round of estimates prior to committing that collection into your review set. And what this does is really helps kind of, Iram talked about that culling process, that data explosion. So kind of the high cost of taking all your data, and then of course the complexity of trying to reason through all that data. And so kind of starting culling really at that point of collection. So you're doing this in a targeted, really specific way. And then the third component that's kind of coming in here is really strong reporting and analysis. So you have a consistent set of estimate reporting to give you a sense of how much content is there. And then as you do collect this content into a review set, you get the full summary of the content that's included there. That helps you build kind of the story of the lineage of kind of where you started and then what you collected and what you got into in terms of the number of the content that's coming into your case that you're going to then process downstream further. So now that I've kind of talked a little bit about kind of why we did this, let me jump into a demo and kind of show you how it looks and call out some of the key pieces. So I'm just going to transition over to my demo environment here. Give me 1 second while I do that and bring that up. And I'll just get a confirmation from the team.
Go ahead, Nick.
Excellent. Okay, so here I am in my advanced eDiscovery case. I'm within this case called Hyperion within the Compliance Center, and you can kind of get a sense of the, the workflow that we have in advanced eDiscovery with the tabs at the top now. So you can add your data sources, you can drive your collections, you can review your content, notify your custodians, so on and so forth. In this case, I want to kind of really drill into the collections. And so if you're wondering, hey, do I have this updated to my organization yet? The way that you can figure it out is to go into your console and see if it says collections instead of search. And so this is kind of the tell of kind of that transition from search into collections. And so if I jump into collections, I want to do a couple things. First, I want to kind of walk through the process of creating a collection. You can see I've got a bunch of them that have already been created here. And the process isn't so different from kind of what you're used to from creating a search. And so you'll see we have a similar kind of look and feel in terms of the wizard, opportunity to name and provide a description for that collection, select the custodians that I'm interested in. In this case, I've got a set of custodians that I've already added to the case to make sure that their content is got on hold and has gone through the deep indexing process. And so here I'm interested in what Irvin has been up to, what Irvin's been working on. So I'm going to add Irvin. I can see here I've got his mailbox, his OneDrive, and for now that's going to be good. I'm mostly interested in his custodial data sources. Of course, I have the option to select non-custodial data sources as well, and so I can kind of put those in specifically here, either the site or the team. But in this case, I'll just go with Irvin as my main source. And there are, of course, situations where I want to search all of Exchange or all of SharePoint or even my entire tenant. If I only know the project name, I only know a particular piece of information, maybe I want to start out really broad and then use that as a way to target the sources that I'm interested in. So, if Hyperion were a confidential project name, I could toggle these all to on and then just do a keyword search on Hyperion and then learn about the locations where people were discussing this project name. In this case, I'm going to stick with the targeted collection with Irvin. Of course, I can enter my keywords and provide my full list of conditions around date range, retention label, the type of communication, so on and so forth. And we do also now, of course, support the Korean, Japanese language characters as well. So you can kind of change your language filter in that process. And then here's where you'll start to see a divergence from the current experience. And so now we've introduced this concept around saving the collection as a draft. So rather than setting this as a kind of an object within your case, we're actually going to create this as a draft so you can get a quick sense of the estimates and then further work with that draft rather than kind of having that be set in stone like you are today with your searches. Now, the other option here is to collect these items into a review set. And so once I feel really confident about kind of the scope, the size of my collection, and if at the outset, if I feel really good about that, I can skip the draft step altogether and just start to pull these into the review set. And with that, I have a few options to do so. But first, let me just kind of go ahead and set this as a draft so we can get a sense of those estimates. So here, kind of reviews my settings. What did I put together? Okay, it's around Irvin. It's his locations. I'll go ahead and submit that. And that will run. It doesn't take, a long time. It takes a little bit. In this case, I wanted to kind of show how this shows up. So I have one that's already been estimated. And so I'll just open this one and kind of give you a sense of what you get once the estimate has been generated. So quickly, I can see a summary of what I put together for my collection. I can see there's about 50 items, about 521 KB, so not a huge collection. I can also see the statistics around this, and this gives me a sense of the estimates. So it gives me, the number of items, the location, the rough volume. I can see the condition report for kind of where did I hit upon, which queries hit upon which locations. And then I can see the top locations that I have within this search. In this case, I was looking at Irvin, so we know it's kind of only within Irvin's Exchange mailbox. But you can imagine if I was in that scenario where I was doing a broad search, that top locations would be really important to understand who was talking about or had access to this confidential information. I can also review a preview, so I can jump into the full preview experience to get a sense of what's going on with that content. Not sure why that preview wasn't there. Looks like no data available in this one, but let me, it is a dog food environment, so I can, as I jump into the committed collection, I can show that as well. But then I have actions, and so here is where these collections become more malleable, more something that's a living, kind of breathing entity within the case that I can work with. So I can edit this collection, delete the collection, refresh the estimates. I can export this as a report and just get a sense of kind of what's been included in these estimates, or I can copy this collection. And so in this case, I want to go through and kind of say, hey, I like where I am with this collection. Now I want to commit this to the review set. And so if I edit this collection, I can then jump back to the wizard, kind of confirm my settings as I go through. Hey, I've got Megan and Irvin. This is a different one than I had set up initially with the walkthrough. I've got sites included as well. I've got my keywords set, and now I want to collect this into a review set. And so when I go to the second radio button, I have some options. So either I can create a new review set to add this to, or I can choose from a set of existing review sets. These are all review sets that I've already created within my case. I know that I'm kind of interested in this Hyperion project, so I'm going to add it to this review set that is around Hyperion. And then I have some more options around the settings that I want to have when I bring these into the review set. And so the first one is around understanding the contextual teams in Yammer. So messages that are around the search results. So if I'm looking for something related to this particular project, Hyperion, and I get a hit on a Teams message, usually I don't want just that message. Usually I'd like to understand what's happening before and after that message. what's the context of the conversation, what are people talking about, what are they going back and forth about. So I'll often check this one to kind of give me that before and after of the responsive message, whether it's in Teams or Yammer, so that I can understand the conversation and what was taking place. Now, the second option is around cloud attachments. And so this is a really common construct that we see a lot of our customers using, where they're sharing linked files, linked content in the course of collaboration, rather than a local file or a local attachment was very common a few years ago. And so in this case, I might say, hey, the content that was shared in a responsive email or Teams message, I want to get that too, because it may be that in the Word doc that I attached, or Megan or Irvin attached to that message, there's important information that's relevant to my case. So I'll usually select that as well to bring in those cloud attachments. The third option we have now is to collect all versions of the SharePoint items. So in the case that I'm searching on SharePoint and I have a document library, so I want all the versions of those documents. In some cases, this is really important. Now, we do provide a caution to say, hey, this will really increase the number of items total that you're bringing into the review set, the overall volume that you're going to be contending with once you do that. So only in special cases do we recommend bringing all those versions. Now, I do have the option to edit my sampling parameters. Perhaps I only want a portion, percentage, or random sampling of the content. In this case, I'm going to add all this content to the review set, and I can kind of quickly review my my and kind of my options that I set and submit that job. Now, once this is submitted, I have a little bit different view in my kind of collection view. So I want to kind of jump into this one that's committed and just highlight a couple things. So we retain those search statistics that we already looked at. So this again gives you that initial estimate that you can help make your decisions on. And these are really an estimate. These aren't the true numbers, but this is kind of a sense of what we think is responsive to your search. And so we retain that information, that's unchanged. And let me just show you the preview here, because I think we'll have, yep, we have some content here. So this is where I can quickly look at a sampling, about 100 items of the content, and I can start to look at, hey, is this the right stuff? Is this not the right stuff? But just give me a quick spot check in my full page preview experience. In this case, I'm feeling pretty good, but I wanted to highlight that because my last collection didn't have any of those preview items. So I have those search statistics, but then once this is committed and collected into the review set, I have a new set of information that's about the true information of the content that's been collected. So if I go into my summary tab, then I can jump into the collection content. And what you'll see is there's a little bit of a difference. And what we find is that as we go through this processing process into the review set, we actually extract embedded items, we pull apart attachments. Some of those are cloud attachments you might have identified as being collected or added, some of the contextual messages. So we actually have a little bit larger total items number that we bring into the review set, and we provide more information around, hey, how many of these were parents? How many of these were child items? Did we have errors? How was the indexing on these items? So I've got all of these items indexed, and I have indexing errors, and then I can also review my collection parameters to kind of refresh on what I'd set when I ran this collection and to bring this content into my review set. So this together kind of solidifies and shores up kind of what was felt like a long process to get to that relevant content review, and really brings it closer and faster to the user set. And so we're excited to get this out into your environment and to hear your feedback as you start to use this. And so I have one more thing that I want to kind of jump into. Let me switch back over to the slides. And so let me catch up to where we were. 1 second. I mentioned this concept of the cloud attachments. So we talked a little bit about that. Really common workflow, really important feature that we released October, November timeframe last fall. So it's not exactly new, but it's something that's still kind of getting momentum and traction in the market. And it's a really valuable thing because this content in a lot of scenarios is seen as highly relevant, really important. And what we've seen and heard from customers is they're actually going through the process of collecting the content, getting the content to a point where they can understand what communications were sent, finding the links for the files that were sent, going back to the OneDrive or the SharePoints where that content was located, doing another targeted collection to bring that into the case. So really kind of arduous, long-running, multi-step process. Whereas now, when you check that box, we're actually going to go and proactively pull that content from ODB and SPO and bring that in. So really important, really want you to take a look and give us feedback. But with this, the new piece is that we're now supporting Microsoft encrypted content, and in particular, Microsoft Information Protection, the encrypted labels that are very popular, customers are using to protect their sensitive content, protect their organization from risk of losing the sensitive contents. There's all kinds of risk associated with this highly confidential content. It was creating challenges for eDiscovery managers, where when you have high levels of encryption, it was difficult and caused a similar kind of offline process to pulling down encrypted content, unencrypting it, pushing it back into the case, and a very manual and arduous. In addition, it was causing kind of adoption challenges for our customers who really wanted to realize the value of the entire suite of solutions that Microsoft 365 is now delivering across information protection, information governance, communication compliance. Really wanted these things to work well together. You can't have your sensitivity breaking your eDiscovery processes. So bringing these things, enabling kind of automatic decryption for the eDiscovery manager in the flow, really important, something that's now available. So you can go ahead and any content that's stored in SharePoint or OneDrive is available for eDiscovery search and collection, preview, as well as review. And then if you've got a local attachment that's been encrypted and attached to an email and exchange and sent to the group, that can be collected and previewed as well. Now, we don't index that local attachment for keyword search, so if that attachment was the only thing that had the proper keyword, you wouldn't necessarily be able to find it. But if you knew the custodian or the location and you collected all that content, then we're going to be able to decrypt that for you so that it's available in preview, available in review. And so before I hand it over to Jeffrey, let me just take a quick look at how this looks. You can see here in this review set, I've got this confidential doc around Contoso Pharma. This is something that I can view kind of automatically. It's been decrypted through the process. I don't need to do additional steps as the eDiscovery manager, as long as I have that RMS decrypt role assigned to my eDiscovery manager profile. And then from there in the review set, I can easily, download in the case that I'm doing a small set, or export the content for further production downstream. And again, decrypted content as you take it out of the system and either hand it off to opposing counsel or to another internal team for further investigation and remediation. So really powerful feature set that's just kind of come out over the last few months. Want to make sure everybody's aware of and has a chance to test it out and take advantage of it. So with that, let me pass it over to Jeffrey. And Jeffrey, I think you're starting with the slides, so I'll just run the slide for you while you talk through it. And then I think Jeffrey's going to show us a demo as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm a program manager here at the eDiscovery team at Microsoft, and I work mainly on the features that fall under review, machine learning, and analytics. I'm really excited today to share you some of the work our team has been working on, starting with the enhancements coming to the review set. So with the review set, we've really have an improved layout, and what we've really tried to do here is reduce the clutter for users so that we have optimal screen space provided to users to conduct the necessary core tasks in the review workflow. And that's something that I can highlight and go a bit deeper on when I enter the product a bit later. The other improvement coming to the review set is a simple yet powerful filter. So we're introducing a completely new filter control that combines what was previously a filter and a query all into a single control. And that really provides customers the ability and flexibility to find the content that they want quickly within the review set. Lastly, we've really improved the placement and discoverability of some of the key features within review set so that you as a user can access them without deviating too far away from the core review set workflow. So without going into it too much, I'm just going to quickly share my screen and dive right into the product itself. Just waiting for confirmation from the team that my screen.
You were good to go, Jeffrey.
Perfect. So right here, I have a review set open in front of us. As you know, the first thing that you'll notice within this review set is the improved layout of our review set with this simple dual panel system that we have here. And this dual panel system is really designed to optimize the main review set experience, giving you the necessary screen space to customize the panel as much as you can and review documents one by one. Next up, we have a completely new filter and query control. So over here, for customers looking for an easy way to narrow down items within the review set, they can find filters in the filter panel right here. Select a filter that they're interested in, and just like that, they can filter down the items of their review set after selecting the value and assigning a value to the filter. For advanced users, we offer a query builder experience that lets them group, nest, associate various different condition cards together. And so within this group, you can actually nest condition cards together as much as you want, and even control the relationship between condition cards within groups. This really provides some of our advanced users the flexibility to craft the necessary filter and query experience so that they have that level of granularity to quickly look for the documents that they're looking for and prioritize review using the filter control. Once you've saved sort of your filters, you can save them as a query. Let's give this a name. And hop in between different queries that you've created for yourself and reference them in the future. As you know, our review set offers several capabilities to efficiently review documents. Some of these capabilities include tagging, redactions, grouping, filtering, threading, and more. And with this new enhanced layout, these controls are easily accessible via the command bar and within the viewer itself, so that users can easily access some of our, core functions without deviating too far from the main review set workflow, either through the command bar or through the family relationships down below in the viewer. So that's a quick overview of our review set and a quick glance into what we've been working on. I'm going to quickly pivot back into the deck really quick to talk about our next update that's coming to you. So I'm just going to quickly share my PowerPoint deck. Perfect. So one of the most exciting things coming that I'm personally excited to share with you folks is the new predictive coding module in advanced eDiscovery. For extremely large cases where there might be limited resources or a tight timeline, customers will soon be able to use our new predictive coding module to help prioritize the review of their documents. One of the first things that we've done with this new predictive module is provide users an enhanced approach to training their model, such that it provides greater flexibility and transparency for users looking to iteratively tune the model without hurting the performance of these models too much. This particular enhanced approach enables customers to train as you go and build their model iteratively. And what this just means is with as little as 50 documents in a particular training round, our model lets users see the prediction scores of each item after each round of training and have real-time updates to performance in your model. And I'll speak more to that as I provide a demo after. As part of this approach, one of the areas that we tried our best to optimize is lowering the friction for users to even get started with a model. Rather than requiring users to label a huge amount of documents up front, we've lowered that barrier to get started quickly, and so that customers don't need to go through an arduous, high friction process to have a model running within the review set. Last but not least, the output of these models are available for users within the review set so that they can have a prioritized review experience, starting with the most relevant documents outputted by these models. So I'm going to take a quick moment and transition back straight into the product itself and offer you a quick glance at what it looks like. So in front of me, I have a review set shown. This is the new review set that I just talked about. And we have documents that we've collected straight into this review set from the collection flow that Nick was showing earlier. And in this particular review set, I'm going to show you guys how to get started with a basic model and how to get it running quickly. The first step is to create a model within this review set. So under the analytics section, we have the new predictive coding module available to you folks. And to create a model, simply select new model and give it a quick name. Let's give it sample model. Insert. And just like that, you can save your model and it will begin initializing and instantiating your model. In the interest of time, it should finish instantiating in a couple minutes, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip right ahead to a model that hasn't, that has finished instantiating, but hasn't gone through any training rounds. As you can see, when you click right into it, everything's currently empty, including some of the performance numbers, as well as the summary numbers. To get started, simply select Start Next Training Round, and you will be taken through an experience where you can provide and go through and label each item within this training round. So every training round, we would sample 50 items, and you'd be able to go in, look at each item, and deem each item either as not relevant or relevant. After you complete labeling 50 rounds, simply select Finish, and what we would do is we would take these labels and train a model where it learns based off your labeling in this process, which content is deemed relevant and which content is not deemed relevant. And what our model would do is go through each item within your review set and select a prediction score between 0 and 1. 0 being, our model thinks this particular item is completely irrelevant, and 1 being this particular item is highly relevant. So I'm going to skip right ahead to a model where I just completed a single round of training here of labeling 50 items in this particular model. And really quickly, what you'll be able to do is open up a filter, and under filters, you'll find the model that you've just trained and the prediction score filter for it. And just like that, you can enter the prediction score of the content, the range of prediction scores you're looking for, and quickly search for contents that are deemed relevant by the model based off of the prediction score, and prioritize your review just like that. I want to skip ahead and show you guys what a fully trained model would look like in a review set. So over here, I have a model open, and it shows you the latest performance numbers, the richness, recall, F-score, precision scores required for you as an advanced eDiscovery practitioner to really understand the performance of your model and the validity of some of your model's output. Furthermore, we give you a summary, a set of signals, summary numbers showing you how many items were predicted relevant within your review set, how many items were predicted not relevant, how many items that you have tagged so far, as well as the overturn rate, meaning between the most recent round of training and the previous, how many predictions were overturned due to the latest round of training. For advanced users, you can even go into the Train and Apply tab and look at a quick history of all of the training rounds that you've trained. You can even select any one of the training rounds and will provide a full breakdown of a snapshot of the model status and a breakdown of some of these performance numbers, some of the labels provided to your training set, as well as the labels provided to your control set. So that's a quick overview of the new predictive coding module that will soon be available in the advanced eDiscovery solution. I'm extremely excited to offer this set of capabilities to you folks, and I can't wait for all of you to test it out. That's a quick overview. I'm going to now hand it back to Iram to discuss more about some of the roadmap features coming soon.
Okay, well, while Iram is getting reconnected or getting his headset worked out, I'll just kind of jump in and talk a little bit about how we're shaping the what's next and what we're working on from here. And then Iram, feel free to kind of give us a ping or a heads up once you get back into the call. So, you know, we wanted to talk a little bit and shape the kind of the roadmap and what's next a little bit based on what we've been hearing from customers and what kind of is top of mind. And so similar to how we shared a little bit about the point of view on kind of the world today at the beginning around remote work and around the data explosion and around the regulatory pressure and increasing you know, urgency around mediating some of these regulatory requirements. You know, the themes are consistent, and what we hear from customers is, you know, really threefold. Hey, I need to be able to support modern collaboration workflows. We're adopting the cloud, we're adopting modern collaboration very quickly, even more quickly over the last year in light of the pandemic and the remote work drive. And so we really need things to work great for teams. We need things to work great just in this modern collaboration context across the board. And so, you know, keep supporting some of these scenarios. Like already we know that the threaded chat review is a big value add for a lot of customers. So the feedback has been, you know, continue to support these things, continue to make them work better, better and better. And so that's kind of the first big theme that we hear from customers. The next one is, hey, really where, you know, where advanced eDiscovery is going to be able to help our organization is to reduce the amount of content we're taking out of the Microsoft 365 security and compliance boundary. And so to do that, we need great analytics tech. We need really good, you know, pieces around relevance, like what Jeffrey was just showing us. We need the ability to understand the themes of the content, you know, great kind of controls and technology to help us reduce that overall data set and really only export the most relevant content, that specific set. And this is kind of speaks to that, both the risk and the cost part of the equation that Iram mentioned at the beginning around really what are the drivers and the principles that we take in when we're kind of charting our development priorities. And so be really great at calling. And, you know, some of our customers who are highly adopted on advanced eDiscovery, they're achieving just incredible call rates. They're able to reduce the amount of content, you know, 80, 90% based on some of the tech that's included. So the push is to continue to do that, to continue to invest there, continue to do more. And then the third piece is around, you know, scale. And so we see, you know, some really exciting customers coming on board, and with them coming on board, the size of their organizations, the size of the cases that they're needing to push through, the scale of just the amount of content, and then also the time-sensitive nature of getting that content prepared and ready for its next stop, whether it's a regulator or you know, through the litigation, is going to be something that is super important. And so, you know, even as we kind of increase the limits for the collection size, the overall case size, you know, we recently went from 100 GB to 300 GB. Even as we just brought that out, you know, some of our customers said, hey, that's not enough. We need to be at a much larger scale. And so that's been a consistent theme where we're working on increasing the limits across the board and making sure that the platform is ready to handle this high level of volume of content that's going to go through the system, and that we're continuing to deliver a high level of quality and reliability through that platform. And so these are really the themes that we hear loudest currently, and that we're working on kind of prioritizing our development for the next sprints around. And again, these are consistent. These haven't changed. These aren't changing on a monthly basis. These are things that we've been hearing over the last year. So it's great to see that consistent feedback, have that consistent push into kind of what are the things that the customers need in order to really feel good about adopting advanced eDiscovery. Now it looks like we do have Iram back, so let me see if he wants to jump in for these next couple slides. I don't want to deny you his overview here. Iram, were you able to get back into the call?
I was. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for jumping in. I'm not sure my computer decided to make things a little more interesting for me this morning. Let me.
Of course, no worries.
Yeah. Okay. So, So Nick was starting to lay out like some of the cool things that we're starting to work on now, or that you can expect here pretty soon. Teams, like he said, like this is a big component of the feedback that we get is, modern collaboration. We're all in, and there's a bunch of data that needs to be discovered. But because this is slightly different than we've done in the past, help see what we can do to kind of get the process a little more streamlined, a little more efficient, a little less complicated. In one of the first, one of the first big opportunities here, and we're really excited about this, is, and you probably understand today, when you extract any content that's related to Teams, basically every thought, every message that is sent is, when you export it, it looks like an email message. That poses a lot of challenges, right? It's not easy to kind of stitch conversations together, not easy to find context. If you run a search for, let's say, foo, and a single message comes back, hard to make a decision, right? Without getting full context around that message. Treating all of the various messages that make up one conversation as, somewhat of a document is difficult. So there were a lot of challenges that were being shared with the team. And so what we're doing is we're coming up with a new design where the team is exploring a way where it's not now a single message, but we're treating the entire conversation as sort of a record with an eDiscovery, right? And that comes with some flexibility. So you will be able to say, hey, I want to run a search and I want to, go find this content in Teams, but I want to be, I want to have control over the size of the collection around. I want to be able to determine, context here. So don't just give me the hit. Give me some surrounding content around that hit so that I can understand what this conversation was about. Big change, right? This is not something that you now have to learn how to expand a query into different dates, or how to follow up to one query with a second to be able to find context after you find hits, or trying to mesh two search results together. Like all of these complications go away by us sort of saying, here, we'll find a hit and then we'll expand that to be able to pick up context automatically. The other thing is the format, the file format. We're using HTML, so that's going to make things significantly faster, significantly lighter. We are currently using PDF, but we, for scale purposes and for lots of flexibility, HTML is going to be the new standard. And also kind of helps you, to that point, just reduce the size, the footprint of the export. Once you get to the point, it's not, heavier messages. It's going to be a lighter HTML file with the metadata that you need. So super excited about this, and this will be coming here very soon. I think we're actually already in private preview with some of you folks that have helped us design some of these features, so we're very excited. The next set is around scale, right? Some of you folks have jumped into advanced eDiscovery and have been fantastic about kind of keeping us involved as you migrate in, and some of you folks are really, really large and have very, very large cases, and we had to scale the service significantly. Not that long ago, 1 million records was considered, a decent sized database. And, now requirements are going up to kind of keep up with the data explosion and keeping up with just so much content being generated. So, the new target that we're shooting for here is 40 million records to be able to be put into a review set, and also increasing the pipeline in, right? So besides being able to contain a lot of content, just being able to collect content, we're bumping that up to a terabyte. That's up from 100 gigs. So that's a significant increase. And with that, we want to give you lots of visibility, right? What is in the review set? How much content is there already? What did it expand to? How much more room do I have as I start doing more collections? So giving you full visibility into just tracking all of the numbers from the collection all the way to having it ready for review and then even for export. Being able to see visibility into all of that, all those numbers is super important, and that's part of the same update. So those are the two that we wanted to highlight real quick. The Teams integration and the scale. There's a bunch more work that we are not able to highlight just because of time, but please stay tuned. We're super excited. Also want to take this opportunity to just sort of remind folks, eDiscovery sits in that third pillar here, discover and respond. But there's a bigger suite of tools that makes up the compliance offering for Microsoft, and it's super important to consider how well all of these systems work together. There's a nice better together story all the way from upstream, making sure that the content is organized, classified, protected, right? And then detecting threats too. So not just sort of keeping your content secure, but if an incident does happen, being able to detect that incident with the insider risk tools, right? Detecting it and being able to act quickly on those, super key. If a deep investigation is needed or responding to litigation, that's the suite that we have within Discover and Respond. And then the last pillar is compliance management. This is understanding just your risk posture all up. Where are some opportunities for us to sort of improve risk management within the tenancy? It'll help you with that. It'll tell you these are the solutions that you should probably take advantage of, or settings that you can probably change just to sort of reduce your overall risk. So that suite of applications, the position here is we can help you throughout the life cycle of risk management, from the very beginning of getting content ready to responding and just kind of understanding the risk posture all up. So thank you. We're really excited that we were able to share some of the work with you folks, and the team is working really hard responding to the various requests and the various sort of meetings that we're getting with the challenges that are being posed. We're super proud of the work that the team has been doing, and we invite you to trial, test it, please do an evaluation. If you're not already an advanced eDiscovery customer, get in touch with your account team and ask for a trial. This will be great to kind of get you to work through the solution and give us feedback and tell us what you think. Besides this, there's a ton of other content that the CXE team, and thank you, by the way, big thanks to the CXE team for helping us host this. They have a ton of content available, and so we invite you to please visit these sites. There's really good information here that'll help you kind of understand what it is that we're working on and what we've built and how all of this can help you sort of succeed and get to your results that you're looking for. So I think that wraps up the session. And we're trying to leave a little time here for some questions and answers. So Stephanie.
Yeah, I can go ahead and go through those. Thank you, Iram,
Thanks,
Jeffrey,
Stephanie.
and Nick. That was great. So let's answer a few of the questions that we had outstanding here. The first one is, does eDiscovery have any integration points with Azure Purview?
I can take that.
All right.
Yeah, so we're exploring that, and I think we answered in there, but just for the rest of the audience, we are exploring integrations with Azure, and it's still something that is early, so we don't yet have an ETA that we share. But I invite everybody in the audience to please check in on the M365 roadmap regularly. That's where the team posts any of the work that we're working on and that we expect. We'll even put ETAs there. So check on that site, and we'll update that once we have some ETAs that we can share. Great question.
Sure. And the next question is for Jeffrey here. Is predictive coding replacing the recently retired relevance module?
Yeah, definitely. It is replacing the recently retired relevance module. We are building the new predictive coding solution on a completely new infrastructure. And so this is sort of just the first click stop where we're laying the foundations and providing a core workflow, but over time we're going to be merging some of the best practices that folks really enjoyed in the previous relevance module, laid on top of this new infrastructure of the new predictive coding module, which leverages sort of the latest ML technologies from Microsoft.
Great, and we do have a few more questions, but we are just running out of time here. We are going to publish the answers to all of the questions. We do publish the video for this webinar today, and that is going to be located on the Tech Community CXC site, and I will post that link here in the Q&A section. Thank you all for attending our What's New in Advanced eDiscovery Spring 2021 webinar, and have a great day, everyone.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
folks.